I was telling Liz that this week to me, I mean, we've had a lot of thoughts and feelings and things about all the things the last few weeks, but this week is a very tangible week. We're going to have a lot of interactive things. So I'm just going to dive in because we only have 30 minutes of teaching and I want to get it all in there, okay? So, um, last week we did forging healthy relationships, recapping that was last week, right? Yes. We're recapping the toxic relationships, boundaries, and supportive community and the need for that. And this week we're going to talk about mindfulness and emotional wellness and the importance of identifying and processing emotions and the role of silence and stillness in our lives. So I'm going to talk about silence and stillness for a minute, and then we're going to do it. So, the power of silence and stillness. So, the benefits of incorporating moments throughout your day of silence and stillness um, will reduce stress, will improve your clarity, and will actually help with emotional regulation. And where during that time, really, you don't do anything. You don't focus on breathing. You don't focus on I don't know, whatever your plan is that day, you don't focus on anything. It really is silence and stillness. So you get your phones out. We're going to set a timer for 2 minutes. Okay. So, Kirsten, we're going to set a timer for 2 minutes and we're going to do a silence and stillness for 2 minutes. And I just want you to pay attention to just yourself in that process. Okay. So, everybody ready? Okay. I'm starting the timer now. Okay. That's 2 minutes. I want you to pay attention to like how you felt during that time, what your thoughts were, even as the 2 minutes were going. Like, just take a quick moment to write down anything that you were thinking, feeling during those 2 minutes. Okay, so we're going to talk about identifying emotions tonight, processing emotions, and then um, mindfulness practices. So, identifying emotions. Okay, so understanding them, first of all, is that emotions are neither good or bad. They're just information, and they point to um like what's going on internally. Okay? What's going on in yourself. And so they're natural responses to our experiences, and they provide valuable information about what's going on internally. And um emotional awareness, that's defined as the ability to recognize and understand our emotions. Okay. One of the things that I want you guys to do tonight is just emotion identification. So I want you to just close your eyes for a minute. I told you there's a lot of interactive today. Close your eyes for a minute. Think about the most recent situation where you felt a strong emotion. I want you to identify what that emotion felt and then consider what spurred you to have the emotion or what triggered it. And if anyone wants to share anything in that real quick, you're welcome to.
It's a really bad thought. But I also was like considering, okay, I'm also on medicine and, things like that I'm still getting used to. But and there were other particulars to it. It just trigger warning does have to do with like suicidal thoughts. But like I was at a park where I knew somebody had done that. And that's where the thought first started. But prior to that, I had an argument with my boss to
Hmm.
where he yelled at me and was like very like um condescending. Um, but it's like been multiple times. And then I had the thought of like, well, if this happened here, then he would find me. He would be the one to find me because he's the judge that like signs off on, he goes out on those calls.
Hmm.
And so, but yeah, the feeling behind that was just feeling like, this is not my normal. So that's how I know, like, okay, I'm
Hmm.
talking to whatever. Um, but just knowing that that feeling came from that thought or that emotion of feeling like unheard, unlistened to, feeling small, feeling disrespected, feeling not valued. So
Hmm. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. Anyone else have anything? Okay, who can name more than four emotions? Go for it.
anger, shame, joy, surprise, um, the discomfort, or I don't know.
Like what you're feeling right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fear.
Any- Okay, I only say that.
Embarrassment.
No, that's great. I say that because a lot of times people are like mad, sad,
Happy.
happy, and then the fourth one is always a crap shot, you know? It's just like I don't know what they're gonna end up getting. And it's usually fear or shame. But those are the four emotions. But here, let me show you something. I'm sorry, I didn't have it ready. This is my favorite emotion wheel ever. I just sent it to you. And that probably still doesn't encompass all the emotions. So, being able to identify emotions, you have to be aware of what you're feeling, right? So, being able to identify them, you can't process them until you know what it is that you're feeling. And then being able to say, okay, well, if I want to try to take this beyond the four emotions I just named, right? And you're needing help, that emotion will help with that. Or you can just be like, Jesus, what is this that I'm feeling right now that I don't know the name of it? And he'll tell you. Um, so in order to be able to process emotions, you have to acknowledge them. And it's important that we don't suppress our emotions, that you don't ignore them. And it's interesting because there's a whole culture out there that talks about like your emotions don't matter, that you shouldn't listen to them, that you can't trust them. I don't know. Like there's all kinds of things like just shutting them down and
Mhm.
even like in the Christian sphere of things, like you're not allowed to be angry. Like there's this whole thing of like you're not supposed to be mad, you're not supposed to be angry. And then people who feel anger feel shame because they're angry about something instead of acknowledging the anger in them and then being able to process that anger, it stays tucked away inside of you with any other emotion that you're ignoring. And then one day it all comes out, all out in all the different ways. And, for some, it can look like a panic attack. Others, it can just look like you literally vomited whatever,
Mhm.
word vomit to people, or just, in different ways. But it's important that you don't suppress or ignore your emotions, but rather acknowledge them and process them. A technique that you can use to process emotions is journaling, right? I don't know who likes to journal, but if you like to journal, talking, what?
I said, no, I don't at all.
Some people do. Some people like to look back and be like, oh man, this is how things were 6 months ago and find it encouraging that things are different. Um, Journaling, talking with a trusted friend, and then practicing mindfulness and then actually processing your emotions within that. In my coaching that I do, one thing that I love is I like to go deeper with the emotion and processing emotions. And I always have people schedule an appointment with the Holy Spirit. And there's a whole process with that they go through that I'm not going to get into right now. But we'll talk about journaling for a second because I think everyone understands what journaling is and it's a practical exercise to do. So I want you to describe a recent emotional experience and how you felt. What thoughts accompanied this emotion and how did you respond? And just take a minute I'll read it again. Describe a recent emotional experience. Now, this is just a journaling exercise, okay? Describe a recent emotional experience and how you felt. What thoughts accompanied this emotion and how did you respond? And just take a minute or two. Okay, does anyone want to share just one person that hasn't already shared? Kristen, about an emotional, like what you just journaled, as much detail, a little detail, or maybe none.
I'll share. You guys hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So I got pissed off at work today. Bright and early. It was like 5 in the morning. I walk in and um there's a sold section in the cooler. So sometimes customers will buy stuff, but they don't want it on the day of. So what you do is you pull the flowers so that they don't get sold. You put them in the sold section and nobody's supposed to touch them. Came in this morning and my poppies were gone. And I
Mm-mm.
was like, where are my fucking poppies? I didn't actually say that, but I was like, where I asked this, nobody's ever going to admit to the fact that they took my poppies, and then I had to tell my customer that they were stolen by another sales representative and that I cannot give her red poppies. I was pissed off, but I no longer do emotional reactions. So I went to the back and I processed flowers by myself for a couple hours. And as I processed flowers, I processed my emotions. And I came back and I was fine. And at the end of the day, I talked to my manager and I said, "Hey, this and this is what happened this morning." He was like, "Well, thank you for not going off." I was like, "Oh no, I don't do that." I was like, "I processed by myself. I processed the flowers by myself, processed by myself, came back." I was like, "You're not gonna get that emotional reaction from me." But I said, "But please, next time we have a sales rep meeting, like bring it up because I value respect. I don't touch anything that's in this whole cooler. I don't appreciate stuff being touched. If you want to sell something, ask before you touch it." And then I went to the end of my day and that was great. So
That's awesome. It's
that was
great.
that.
I appreciate that you identified the emotions that you felt. You did. You were able to identify them, right? And then related to a scenario, right?
Mhm.
And then able to even like how did you respond and all of that. That's great. Great awareness there. Seriously, like sometimes it can be that did it feel easy to you in the moment?
I mean, yeah, the reason I had to go to the back is because my face can't hide shit. So like I can now control my tongue, but I cannot control my face. And I
Yes.
had an idea of who did it, and so I knew that if I was out there, my face was just gonna give it away. So the reason I went back to process was because I need to be in my body okay, because this needs to be able to.
And that's seriously great though, even
Good
that
awareness.
awareness. Like
Yeah, listen,
this
I know my
isn't
face doesn't
communicate.
hide anything. I don't need to say anything, which is bad sometimes. So yeah, that's why I really went back there because I was like, my face is gonna show it. So yeah.
Yeah, I understand that completely. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate it. Um, the next part is, like I said, I'm sorry, we're just going right through these. I know they're kind of fast, but the mindfulness practices. So, mindfulness involves being present and fully engaged with the current moment without judgment. I'm going to say that again. Mindfulness involves being present and fully engaged with the current moment without judgment. And when we are mindful, it can really help us become more aware of our emotions and reduce stress. Honestly, Anna just gave a perfect example of that. And Liz is actually going to do this part with you all.
So can you guys hear me okay? I never know. Brooke's always like, you talk too quiet. So I think that there's such being mindful and practicing mindfulness is so important. And I was thinking today, I love this verse in Matthew 11:28 when it says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." And I think there's something in that rest and mindfulness together. And so one of the practical ways that I like to rest and practice mindfulness is by breathing. Not just like, the regular breathing that you do to keep you alive, but like some intentional breathing. And so I'm going to do that with you guys. I like to do box breathing. Does anybody know what box breathing is? Raise your hand. Okay. So box breathing is you are going to breathe in. We're going to breathe into the count of 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to hold it with all the air inside of you for a count of 4. Then you're going to exhale for a count of 4 and hold out no air. So you've got no air and you're going to hold that for 4. Does that make sense?
Exhale.
Exhale. Yes. Thank you.
The no air
The
part.
no air is also called exhaling for you fancy people. Yes. Thank you. So we're right. Does that make sense? So breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4, hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, hold it. Exhaled. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to do that for a whole minute. Okay. One of the things that I think is really cool about that is actually the name Yahweh for God in Hebrew. The Yah part of Yahweh is to inhale God, and the way is to exhale God. So when we are breathing, we're actually worshiping and saying God's name, which I think is just really cool. And so if you think about it from that perspective, it just really is like a beautiful way to rest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what I want you to do is when we're going to inhale, I want you guys to be like, I want you to think about inhaling God's love. And when we exhale, I want you to think about exhaling like toxic thoughts that aren't serving you. Okay. Can you time me? Oh, I've got my watch. I've got a watch, guys. Okay. I can't
Oh,
see it
sorry.
because I've got old lady eyes.
No judgment on what's coming up, right?
Say that again.
Not judging what they're hearing or
Yeah. Don't judge what you're hearing. I want you to think about, like, as you're doing it, you're inhaling God's love and you're exhaling toxic thoughts. I don't want you to judge whatever those thoughts are that come up. There's no right or wrong here,
yeah, yeah.
right? And just pay attention to what you're thinking and feeling as you do it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, let's go. Okay, time's up. Okay, so how was that for you guys?
I wanted to take a nap.
You did. I find every time that I do that, I feel so much more peace after I'm done. Um, Sometimes when I'm in the minivan driving the children and they've been fighting the whole way home, I'll have everybody get out and go in the house and I'll sit in the van by myself and just box breathe for just a few counts even. I think even Navy SEALs use box breathing before they'll storm in and take a situation. They'll just do a couple beats of that in order to just sort of like refocus their central nervous system and to focus their thinking.
It's
So
practicing the pause.
it is
It
practicing.
literally is practicing the pause.
Yeah.
That's good. That's awesome. Um, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to come back to our 2 minutes of silence and stillness. But before I do that, one of the things I want to say about the silence and stillness is I want to encourage you for the next week to incorporate that throughout your day. Whether you start your day off and find the middle of the day doing that, or at the end of the day, just somewhere trying to do it at least once, but go for twice if you can. If you can do it at once, great. If you can do it twice, even better. And it's not a competition in yourself. It's just like this idea of like recentering. And honestly, if you want to do it 3 times, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, go for it. But when you did it the first time, who panicked? Anyone? Yeah. Okay. Who whose mind just like went off and completely forgot what they were doing? Yeah. Okay. Who felt like the 2 minutes was the longest 2 minutes in their entire life? Oh, I'm surprised. Usually it's like that's the biggest one where everyone's like, "Oh my God, this took too long." And then, okay, well, who thought the 2 minutes came quick? Okay, that's great. So we're gonna do it again. And again, I want you to pay attention to what's going on inside of you, how you feel about it, just all of that. And I'm gonna set the timer. Okay, ready and go. Okay. Now, with that, did anyone notice anything different this time?
I was a lot more calm this time,
Okay. It's
or
good.
peace.
It's good. Anyone else?
I forgot what I was doing this time. I went in 27 different rabbit holes in my mind, and then all of a sudden I was like, what was I doing? Oh yeah. Okay.
Okay. Okay. So these things that, like I said, they're just pretty interactive today, but the journaling as one of the techniques, the for processing emotions, being aware of your emotions, okay? Like acknowledge what you're feeling, acknowledge what you're thinking about in that feeling, process it, and then, honestly, even go as far as be like, hey, God, what do you think about how I feel about this? Get his perspective on it, and then give it to him or do whatever he tells you to do with it at that point. Because it's like, if you don't acknowledge that you're angry about something, it's just going to sit and stew in you until you're ready to acknowledge it. And it doesn't go anywhere. The only reason it goes somewhere is because you've acknowledged it and you've taken ownership of it and then processed it. That's when it shifts. So those of us who have a hard time with emotions and don't want to pay attention to them because either you're weak or you're too much or you're not enough or you're self-sufficient or insert whatever.
Emotions are messy.
Yeah, or they're just, they don't matter. No, they're just information. Honestly, they're not good or bad. They're just information and they point to something. So feel the emotion, acknowledge that you feel it, process it, write it out and what you need to do. Or if the journaling is good for you, talk to a friend and let them know what's going on. If you're not sure how to identify the emotion, the wheel can help. The wheel can really help. The one I just gave you. There is a lot more simpler one that I will email out to you. I think it probably has 12 emotions. I like this one, but it's all the choices, right? Um, it might have more than 12, but it doesn't have nearly as many as this one does. So, um, we're going to break out into small groups. I'm going to give you your questions. So either take a picture of them so that way you have them in your small group. Have everyone take a picture, I guess, so that way you all have them. And